Okay, welcome all. It is April 6th at 6 p.m. and this is the meeting of the Katuitt Fire District Bylaws Committee. Can I get have people had an opportunity to review the proposed meeting minutes I sent out of our last meeting?
I
Yes.
did, yeah.
If there are not any objections or corrections, can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. And just so the record's clear too, we in attendance here, we have Mark Lynch, Rick Pisano, Mark Robinson, Amy Cates, and Lisa Haven is participating as well. I see no one else on the Zoom meeting, so we will not solicit any public comment because no one from the public is here. So I wanted to hopefully review the easy stuff first, or at least the less complicated stuff. And help me refresh my recollection. Last time, Article 1, Section 1, I believe we moved, seconded, and approved a change that would make Article 1, Section 1 conclude, and an appointed clerk and I'm sorry, start again. An appointed clerk and an appointed treasurer. And then in Section 2, insert the word elected before officer. Is that I'm sorry?
That's how I remember it.
Yep.
Okay,
I do too.
good. So we'll cross that off the list. Article 11, Section 11, you'll recall this is the provision that it calls for ad hoc advisory committees, and which currently says it can be formed of citizens of the district. My proposal for that is to just delete the phrase citizens of the district and replace it with individuals.
Where are you again, Mark?
This is Article 11, Section 11.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
Article 9, Section 11. The email you sent us says Article 9, Section 11.
Oops.
Article 9.
oh,
Okay.
I put my I before my X. I'll make that change to the meeting minutes.
Okay.
It should be Article 11, Section 11.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, that's not on my meeting minutes. That's just in my,
Okay.
okay. Does that make sense to the group? We can, it makes it very broad, of course, but I think that's what our goal was. Rick, you had mentioned that you'd gotten people from out of the district to assist you in choosing a new fire chief.
Yes.
And these, give me a little background on that, Rick. Was that, does that fall into this category of ad hoc advisory committee?
Yes, it would, because this was a screening committee that was formed to review the initial round of applications for the position, and then to conduct the initial round of interviews for the candidates that were chosen after review of the applications. So we had 2 other fire chiefs volunteer, see, 2 chiefs, a former chief, all from outside the district, and the other fellow was a citizen of the district, the citizen participant. But having the ability to have 3 chiefs outside the district review the applications gave us a tremendous amount of insight into how to read the applications and evaluate them. It was very useful. So I was glad that we had them on board.
Okay. That sounds like the perfect example of why we want to make this change. And the upshot is that these are advisory committees. So in your case, they reviewed those applications and gave you advice, which then the action was undertaken by the elected fire commissioners.
Correct.
So if there's no other thoughts on that, I would look for a motion and a second. And to be specific, on a motion to replace the phrase citizens of the district with the word individual in Article 11, Section 11.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then the issue that we had spent some time on in our last meeting was, couple things. One was we thought it might be wise to define the annual report, and as a kind of style issue, make sure that it's always referred to throughout as the annual report of the district, capital A, capital R, capital D. Rick put together, by reviewing old annual reports, put together a list of what is typically included. The hope of the group was to make this not so specific that it couldn't be changed, but kind of a reminder to all what's supposed to be in there. I thought Rick's submission made sense to me. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I thought you did a great job, Rick. I thought it was very clear.
Turns out it was quite easy. I just opened the last 4 copies I had and laid them out side by side and said, oh, that's pretty easy. They're all the same.
Yeah, good summary. You made our jobs easier tonight.
Okay.
Those,
Um,
we're all wordsmithing, so it
Right.
says shall include, and then it lists the various items.
Right.
Do we want to have a catch-all at the end that might say something like, in any other matter that shall be deemed to be of interest to the voters, or something like that?
I like that.
You know, sometimes we do a dedication or a memoriam or something like that.
Right.
So I mean, these things are inclusive, but they're not prescriptive as the only ones, but they're, you know, just something that has a little catch-all phrase that could go at the end there.
So can I get a motion that we will, well, let's talk a little bit about where, if people are comfortable with Rick's proposed language, with the addition of Mark's proposed language, and any other matter deemed to be of interest to the citizens of the district, where would we want to put that?
Well, we could put commas after each one of these 6 items, 5 items, and then do a and comma any other matter.
Lisa will tell us whether those are commas or semicolons.
I don't have my copy in front of me of the bylaws on this screen, but I believe that the report is first mentioned under duties of the clerk. Is that correct?
I think it is. That's why I said I thought it should go under Article 7. It's not, I don't find a perfect place for it to go. What says you all?
Well, there is a section of district meetings and elections, but it seems to me that it certainly goes under Article 7, Section 4, but
It's
it
a
probably
clerk, it's a
could go.
clerk. Yeah, it's a clerk function, right?
Oh, okay, so let me find the clerk section. So that would be Article 6.
Article
Yeah,
6?
so maybe it's Section 2. Maybe it's Section 2, because we'll arrange to have all recorded, receive all. So what would we do? Add it to Section 2, clerk will cause to be published all annual reports of officers and committees of the district. And then this is where the annual report of the district shall include, and then we list the inclusions that Rick suggested.
I like that. What section is that? I'm having
Section
trouble with
2. So,
section
yeah, so
2.
Article 6 is titled clerk. Okay. And section 2 addresses itself to the clerk shall cause to be published all annual reports of all officers and committees of the district. That could be first sentence period. And then the annual report of the district, the capitals, annual and district, could be the next sentence. What do people think about that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion and a second to include in Article 6, Section 2, under the clerk's duties, the annual report of the district shall include Rick's language with the addition of commas after each of the 6 components, and the language and any other matter deemed to be of interest to the citizens of the district, period.
Sounds good to me. I'll move that.
Okay, okay, Mark second, yeah,
Second.
All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Aye.
Mark, should we also include Rick's language under 7, section 4?
I don't have that language in front of me because of my screen sharing problem. What is Article 7, Section 4?
Well, it's titled treasurer, and it's a little bit longer paragraph, but I'll read it. The treasurer shall submit to the clerk all salaries, overtime, bonuses, benefits, average hours of all employees. This information must be received in time to be published in the annual report of the district. So that's where it talks about annual report of the district. And that's where we could say the annual report of the district shall include, and we could say this language again, unless you think we don't need to.
My thought is that we don't need to.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, let's keep it under the clerk's duties, because we
Okay.
all do think this is a clerk's duty.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm good.
all right.
It'll just be further, that this subsequent paragraph will be further exposition about the financial specifics. That'll be in, basically describing in greater detail that report of the treasurer.
Agreed. Okay. Good. Rick, thank you for putting that language
Yeah.
together. I appreciate it, and thank you for the addendums, which are also good. So
You're on mute. You're on mute, Lisa.
I apologize. I have my screen sharing here, but you can't see the document that I'm trying to screen share. So I do apologize. I'm not sure what's going on,
Okay.
but you're managing just fine.
Okay. So then the final thing was the timing of the submissions by the various officers of the information used to compile the annual report. And we had started out proposing to extend that to March. I keep saying March 30th. It is March 31st is the end of the month of March. Because primarily that has been the custom and practice, and we were not following our bylaws, which currently call for a December 31 filing date. We kind of reversed course a little bit well, we reversed course dramatically and concluded that possibly we would want to have this done earlier. Because earlier is better if the information can be compiled and available to the district. And again, it would kind of keep the holiday season free. A concern was raised that the treasurer would not be able to compile the information he or she needs to compile by that November 15th date, which was proposed. I did talk to Ray and he confirmed that suspicion. He said it would not be practical for the treasurer to have their report, I'll call it a sub-report, done by November 15th because of the requirements of the auditor's review, primarily the auditor's review. So we could, if we were intent on this, change it to November 15th with an exception with another date for the treasurer, which I'm loath to do, what that starts making it complicated. I mean, it does occur that if we keep it at December 31st, the fire and water can get it in before that date, of course, even if not required by the bylaws. But with that, I hope, accurate summary of where we were and where we are now, what do folks think?
Well, we had made a note, I have a note in my bylaws that we did use the language at the completion of the audit. So I think maybe it was Lisa that suggested to us, the treasurer shall make available the detail of this information upon request at the completion of the audit. So we could name, I guess, November or December or whatever, but that, or at the completion of the audit.
Amy, where were we proposing to put that language?
I had it in Article 7, Treasurer, at the end of Section 4. So the information would be received in time. So the middle is the information must be received in time to be published in the annual report, and that the treasurer shall make available the detail of this information upon request at the completion of the audit. Because it said within 90 days of the close of the fiscal year, which we didn't think was a workable definition.
But Article 7, Section 4 deals with the hours, wages, overtime, etc., correct?
It does.
Okay, that's not a problem.
Okay, good point.
It's and does not require, as I understand it, an auditor's review. It's the kind of requirement for the entirety of the submission to be by.
Well, then maybe it should be Section 2, because Section 2 talks about district funds, a detailed report of transactions immediately after the close of the fiscal year, incorporate this report into the next annual district report. So maybe any requests for information could be made available at the completion of the audit. Maybe Section 2 is a better place for it. Maybe not.
Mark and Rick, is it worthwhile to have differing dates for treasurer versus fire and water?
Rick's muted.
Rick's muted, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to
Now you
subject
are,
you
you
to my
good,
sneezing
good.
fit, so. Ask me again, Mark. I got distracted.
Is it, assuming that we could carve out language to clearly do so, does it make sense for the fire and water districts or commissioners to have a different deadline than the treasurer / prudential committee?
I think the fire and water and having a fixed deadline is useful. It just gives us some clarity, and it could remain end of the calendar year, December 31st, as a way of encouraging not letting it drag out into the winter. I would certainly recommend to any subsequent chair of my board that it get done before Thanksgiving and put in, because that's quite doable, I believe. If you have it on your calendar, you just get it done and get it out. The data should be available. But to tag the other two boards to the same line as the treasurer, when the treasurer is kind of an unknown situation, if something went wrong with the finances and the audit drug on, those things could come in very late, just under the wire for publication, in a worst case scenario. So I think it's worth whatever time we hang on fire and water. And I guess I've been kicking this around in my own mind and thinking there really isn't a problem with just leaving at the end of the calendar year, to my thought. And as I said, I would certainly recommend to my board that they get it done before Thanksgiving, and have the kind of language that Amy was speaking to a moment ago about for the treasurer upon completion and certification of the audit.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Frankly, I'd rather get it done by the end of the calendar year instead of letting it buddy over into March for the next year. It just doesn't make sense to be crushing everything. I mean, if the numbers need more time, that's fine. But all of our report, the narrative and whatever, there's no reason that can't be done by the end of the calendar year. And I think that it would probably relieve the clerk of, he could check something off on his to-do list that he's gotten the reports from the committees. Now he can just focus on his audit and not worry about us, hounding us for things.
Mhm.
Right. And Mick made a really good comment. I don't know, maybe our very first meeting when we were talking about the dates for these reports. And he said that his board, I think this is what he meant, that his board would like it to be done by the end of the calendar year at a minimum, because they start getting busy in January and February with budget, or was it with the union contracts? There was something that you got busy doing.
Yeah, our contract negotiations every third year start in the fall. So by the time January comes, we'll have budget on top of that.
Right.
And we would certainly be well advised to have kicked the annual report section out before then.
Okay.
All right. Well, why don't we, I think this is a very good and worthwhile discussion. And I guess there's a difference between bylaw deadlines and best practices. But it sounds like the best practices seem to be, the earlier the better, before Thanksgiving. But if everyone's still okay with the end of calendar year, well, let's let that remain, and going forward, see how that works out. Doesn't require a motion or a second, because it is simply it will remain as currently written. Any other topics?
Where does that language, what article does that language appear in? Oh, it
Well,
was,
that's a good one. Hang on.
I think
I
that's,
thought it was Article 6, Section 2.
okay, well, that's where we talk about the annual report of the district, or the district annual report
Right.
is Article 6 under clerk. So I
And
was looking. I
What's the
was
date
looking at-
there?
Pardon
Amy,
me?
what's the date there in Article 6, Section 2? Is that where we got the December?
No, I wrote in the side of the page, which we must have said at some point, March 30th and 31st. So that's probably talking about the annual district report. So the
Yeah.
reports that we're talking about, I don't know if that should be in Article 7, which is treasurer, or if it should be in clerk, which is Article 6. I'm not sure where our November or calendar year dates should appear.
Well, the calendar year
As it-
date is the one that's existing. I'm just
Right.
trying to refresh my recollection as to where that is now. And
It
the
is, I'll
upside
tell
is,
you where it is. It's, I think it talks about, Article 7, Section 4, talks about a report that the treasurer makes available 90 days at the end of the close of the business of the fiscal year. So that's why we were trying to amend that from the 90 days to some other date, November, December 31, end of
No,
the
I-
calendar
well,
year.
we were talking about amending a provision that talked about the end of calendar year, but we're not going to amend any of those provisions
Okay.
now.
Mark,
Let me find calendar year.
Mark, the calendar year is mentioned in Article 6, Section 2. The-
Article 6, Section 2.
Oh, that's right. Yep, you're right, Lisa. Yep.
And it says the
It-
clerk shall cause to be published all
Yeah.
annual reports of all officers and committees of the district by the end of the calendar year.
Great. And we're just going to leave that as it currently stands.
Yep.
Maybe the minutes could reflect that we encourage the clerk to crack the whip a little better on adhering to that date.
Okay. I will absolutely put that in the meeting minutes, and it is on our recorded call for all to hear as well. Okay. Okay. I will think of some other phrase other than crack the whip, but yeah, the point is well taken. Encourage compliance with that deadline. Yes, I will make sure that's in the meeting minutes. Any other thoughts, concerns, proposals? I think we've made well, we
And as-
certainly corrected some issues. We made a good dent, I think.
Now, as part of your report as the chairman of the bylaws committee at the annual meeting, are you going to have separate, are you going to have all of these changes on separate pieces of paper so that they could be read by you or the committee
Yes.
in order to be
Amy-
voted?
Amy,
Well,
my
it would have
thought
to be,
is-
it would have to be an article in the warrant.
Right.
Right, that's what I meant. So who's
and-
going to manage that? Right.
I will do that. I think my notes are detailed enough that I've got exactly the precise language that we have all agreed upon. I suppose it doesn't hurt if I'm going to go through the effort of drafting it in the kind of precision it needs for the article, that I run it by you guys one more time. But yeah, that's other than the form, typo, and grammatical changes that Lisa made and we approved, I think everything else requires, I suppose, the approval of the Prudential Committee, although I don't see any hiccups there, and a warrant at the annual meeting with the specific details, specific language.
And the district attorney or the council goes through those as well, so there'll be a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah, I agree. I just actually was speaking with Mark Boudreau today on another topic, and we talked about warrants and making sure that he had time to wordsmith if necessary. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that happens.
And
I'd like to raise a
asked-
question in that regard. I'm
Sure.
sorry, go ahead, Lisa. I didn't,
I just wanted to raise the issue of insure and insure again. It's incorrect where it is, but I don't, and you might have decided, and I missed it, that you're going to leave it as is, but
No, Lisa, that's gonna be one of those that I thought it's borderline. I think you're right. It probably really is just a grammatical change. Insure is not the correct word. It's one of those words, two words that get mixed up all the time. But I thought in an abundance of caution that I would, make that one of the changes in the warrant.
okay.
Question I wanted to raise is whether or not we want to, here's my concern, that if we bundle all of these into an article and somebody has a major beef with any one piece of it, there basically could undermine all of it. On the other hand, to break each of these segments down into one-liners is a little tedious, but it would circumvent the problem if somebody takes exception to something. Not that that would ever happen in our annual district meeting, but
I think they should be separate. And I think the easiest thing for the residents is to have what it says now, and then what we're saying in bold or yellow or blue or something, and make it very easy, change by change. So maybe 5 different articles, so that they just see it easy and they see it's not a big deal. And we didn't, create a new wheel. We're just improving our language and making it easier to understand.
I don't think it needs 5 articles, frankly. Somebody has a
Okay.
problem with one of the items, they can just vote to amend it and see whether
Okay.
that flies or not. I just, the district meeting is, we don't want to make it more tedious. This is not particularly controversial stuff. It's housekeeping. We're not proposing any real, as we talked about, what we're trying to do is just trying to codify the cultural practices that we've developed over the years. And so I don't think it needs 5 articles myself, but I bow to the will of the majority, as I always do.
I
how about
appreciate
that?
the clarification,
How about if
because
I
I
talk to-
forgot about amending.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. If they're bundled and somebody has a beef with one line and it looks like a serious beef, we have that option to amend on the fly, and I forgot all about that.
Yeah. I tell you what, how about if I ask Mark Boudreau about this issue? He may have strong views one way or the other. It certainly would be a lot easier to say, in warrant number 3, make the following changes to the bylaws, and they're all there. But let me talk to Mark Boudreau, and if he objects to that, we may have to do them individually.
Yeah, don't forget, we also have the warrant night where we can explain these things better so that people will have an understanding when they go to vote.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I like Amy's idea of having, to show how the change is made in the whole paragraph, but not.
And let me just say this, and you guys can disagree, but if it's separate and it's easy and it's clear and it's the old language and blue new language, then it gets approved, boom, 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 and we fly through it, even if it's 4 or 5 warrants. What do you think? Yeah, everybody votes. What do you think? Yeah, vote. Do you know what I mean? And boom, we go through it quickly, and we don't even notice that there were actually 5 separate warrants.
I mean, I think we're insulting the intelligence of the voters if we ask them to vote on an article that says ensure rather than insure.
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, I just, let's not make this more
I don't feel
complicated.
strongly on that. So let me talk to, again, I'll ask Mark Boudreau particularly about that. Whether we can just get away with changing it because our forebears did not have good grammatical instincts.
Could you tell me where the insure appears again?
Amy or Lisa
Probably
will know
home,
that
isn't
right off the top of her head, I think, putting Lisa on the spot.
See if I have a note anywhere.
I think we've all agreed it should be end short. I don't think we need to go back over it. Lisa will find it.
Yeah,
Can we move on? I'm getting cranky because I haven't had my dinner.
okay,
Okay.
yeah,
Yep, I'm good.
I'm thinking we're wrapping it up here, Mark.
Absolutely.
Anything else that, for the good of the party here that needs to be said?
Nope.
No,
Okay,
Move on.
I think this is our, unless I hear otherwise, this is the last of the bylaws committee meeting. I'll talk to Mark Boudreau, take care of drafting the language pursuant to our discussions, and hopefully we will have one, and if not, several warrants at the annual meeting to make these changes.
very good.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Have a nice night.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
for all
everyone,
the
for
work,
your
Mark.
time.
Thanks, Mark.